What's going on, guys? So today I want to talk to you about one of my biggest losses, how I recovered from it, what actually happened, and the importance of sticking to rules, and a few tips that I want to share with you with the current state of affairs that is happening in the world right now. I want to make sure that you don't fall into any of these traps, sometimes accidentally. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Right, so let me talk to you about this trade, because this one was so emotionally difficult to recover from. Not because of the loss itself, because I've actually taken bigger losses than this as account has got bigger, but this one was because it could have been avoidable by just being more thorough. And that's really the undertone of this particular message that I want you to take away. No matter what skill level you're at, do not get too cocky. I wasn't doing that, it's just that I was doing contracts and I'd oversized the position. So I was taking a trade on dollar yen, and I should have been risking roughly around 4.5K per position. But on this one, I didn't size it properly. So when I got tagged in and tagged out, and it was one of those ones which you can't really manage the position, you're kind of in and out within about 25 minutes. It wasn't very long. And then I was out for just over 15K. Now, it wasn't the 15K because I've lost more than 15K in a position. It was because it was me being reckless. I wasn't being thorough. I took the trade on my phone. I was busy doing something else. And again, it becomes costly. And you think, even at these levels, you'll be surprised how many traders I've spoken to that even when they've hit 7 figures, they still make these tiny little errors and mistakes that you think that you wouldn't make. So we're all human at the end of the day, but I'm talking to you about this so you can avoid that happening, because it doesn't have to happen to you. But just understand that even when you're trading 100, 200, 300 and more, there is an element of human error. You can mismanage a position. Even when you're consistent, it does happen. But you want to set the odds in your favor to win. So what can you kind of learn from this? Well, emotionally, I didn't get over this for quite a few days. Normally a loss, you just kind of move on. And it's not because the loss was not recoverable, it's because it was so avoidable. I was beating myself up. It was just like, it just didn't need to happen. The fact that it was in and out so quick, I think didn't help. If it was one of those ones which was kind of long, drawn out, you know, when you're in a trade and then you kind of instinctively know this is going to take me out for a loss, but there's no justification to close the trade down. There's no way to manage it. And it's a slow burner and it tags you out. I'm sure you guys resonate with this, but this was one of those ones in and out. And it just felt like a stab in the back from myself because it was self-inflicted. So it's more costly to recover from things like that. A little bit like slippage. Slippage, you can take it because you understand it's part of the game. And that kind of leads me to the next point I want to talk about. What you want to do to avoid these things happening to yourself. Some things you cannot, right? It's like saying that you want to avoid losses indefinitely. It's not going to happen. You're always going to have losses. They're part of this game. But if you're thorough and you're clear with your checklist and you make sure that you have non-negotiables, for example, putting yourself in a state of mind before placing a position, right? Just certain checklists in place, so then you can avoid these things happening. You kind of prevent them from happening. So you're not in a situation where you're busy, maybe you're at work and you're starting now to scale up, but you're still working at the same time. You might be running another business, for example. And then what happens, you take your eye off the ball, you're a little bit sloppy, and then you lose 3 or 4%. It can happen. It's happened to the best of us. So what I want you to take from this is that how can you be more thorough? However you're trading right now, how can you be more clear, more thorough, and have a clear set of rules in place to avoid it happening? Things will happen along in your journey, but if you can minimize the damage of doing that with experience and time, you'll be absolutely fine. But it's just about making sure that you don't undo so much of your hard work. For example, look at the state of affairs that we are in the world right now. You can see oil moving towards $115 a barrel. It could even move to $150 a barrel, right? Petrol prices high. We're talking about energy and gas prices going up. Everything happening in the world. Look at all the commodities. Look at corn, wheat, etc., sugar, all moving towards getting higher and higher and higher. Will this happen indefinitely? Well, look at the S&P. The S&P sold off. We recovered very, very quickly. We've seen recoveries like this in 2008. Now, what you have to understand is that when we have these sharp recoveries and everything is going into all-time highs, what can we expect to happen next? A lot of volatility. We can have commodity crashes. Loads of things can happen. And this is where, when you're trading instruments like, I don't know, let's say you're sizing up US oil and you're going to hold that over the weekend, or you're just going to take that trade in general, because of what's happening in the world, more whipsaws, gapping, etc. To me, it's not worth the risk. And what the message I want you to take from this is that think about when you're scaling up and you've got more account capital. Let's say you're trading just £3,000, £5,000 right now. Imagine yourself as someone who's trading a couple of 100,000, 300, 400, 500. If you was to take slippage at 4%, what would that look like to your account? When you start to think in those numbers, because most people don't do the math, what they think is they're immortal, and what will happen is that they will deal with that at a later stage. And they have really bad habits now where it's like, well, it doesn't really matter, you know, if I take a little bit of slippage, yeah, well, you could be owing money to your broker. You cannot be reckless in this environment. Treat it like this. When there's major elections happening, do you hold trades over the weekend? No. Well, I'm assuming that you don't. Do you hold trades over the weekend? No, because of all the gapping. So the same type of thing. At least with elections, you have some sort of idea as to how that can be interpreted. But when you're dealing with things like where war can happen, well then guess what? It is a different ball game. So allow things to settle. We've been seeing price sell off after sell off after sell off, and you have to understand that during those periods, sometimes the market is more indecisive, it's slightly choppier, you might not get your entries. But the focus is not about how much money you can make in these environments, it's about how can you be sensible and protect your capital. So just quickly guys, if you're enjoying the content that we put out on the channel, make sure that you stay in the loop by commenting, subscribing to the channel, turn the notifications bell on so you're always in the loop of the content that we're pushing out on a regular basis. We appreciate the support, and make sure you utilize the resources that we put out. So check all the links in the description. They will help you out massively on your trading journey. Right, now back to the video. Your goal as a trader is not actually to make the most profit. It's actually to manage your risk, and as a side effect, how much profit you make based off of that is your net, not the other way around. Why 90% of traders lose their money? Because 90% of these 90-90-90 rules and so on, the reason why it happens, guys, is because they fundamentally have come into this arena with the wrong state of mind, which most of us do. This is normal. You come in with the mind as to, how can I make money? Which, why wouldn't you? However, when you start to learn to trade and you realize, right, well, I can't be a good trader unless I'm decisive. I can't be a good trader unless I have a very high self-esteem. I can't be a good trader if I learn unless I've got discipline to follow rules. I can't be a good trader unless I'm around the right people and I know how to manage my emotions. I'm in a mental state of performance. You realize all of these things matter. Maybe not on a couple of $1,000s, but I can assure you this, when it's on 100K plus and you start to scale up, these things do matter. Because when you start hesitating, when you have more money on the table, that becomes very costly. So you have to think about these good habits now that is going to serve you. So if there's anything, things like this loss that it taught me, emotionally, is that I wasn't prepared for it. And what did that do? That made me more thorough. And I was so grateful when I looked back and thought, do you know what? I'm going to make sure that I know I can't control anything happening again, because you can still have slippage and things like that. But I can at least assure that I've done everything possible to protect my risk. So I want you to take this as a loss. I don't want you to make these kind of mistakes and losses. And I've made other mistakes in the past as well. However, these are the ones where when they happen quick and you know you could have avoided them and it's just reckless, it literally undoes maybe 1, 2, 3 months of your trading period in just an hour or a couple of days. Right, it can just wipe it out. And what does that do to your confidence? Knocks your confidence. What does that do next? You start hesitating on future trade because you're thinking about, I need to make this back now. So you're in a different state of mind. So set the odds in your favor to win. Make sure you're thorough, make sure you've got rules, and you are operating in a way that successful traders operate. So if you can't answer that question, then you need to do more digging. What are the attributes and traits that I need to have that makes up a successful trader? Which ones do you have? Which ones don't you have? What do you need to double down on? What do you need to get rid of that might be holding you back? That's the thought process that I want you in. So yeah, many losses along the way, more losses bigger than 15K. However, that was the one that really cut deep because it was so quick, it could have been avoidable, and it's all part of it. I would love to know some stories. I'm sure you all have many as to what has happened in your trading. Have you blown an account before? I personally haven't blown an account. People ask me all the time, have you blown an account? People kind of wear that as a badge of honor, which I don't think is very healthy. It's not something you should be bragging about, that you've blown loads of accounts. If you're good at risking, and you're good at risking low amounts of percentage, ideally 1%, it's kind of very difficult to blow an account. Think about it on a mathematical level. It's quite hard to blow an account, yet so many people do. And it's not because they're risking 1%, it's because they're risking 1% and then they lose and then risk 2, and then they lose and risk 5, and they lose and risk 10, and so on and so on. It's the excessive increase of risk because of ego, chasing your tail, and all kinds of emotions. And what does this all link back to, guys? Psychology. Get your mindset right. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how well you can trade. One slip up and your emotions will get the best of you, and you will either blow your account or lose so much of it. That is what I want you to take from this episode, guys. Allow to learn from my mistakes. This is why I want you to come to the channel. Learn from my mistakes. I'm telling you now, if I was more thorough, more clear, and I followed those rules, and I didn't take that trade on my phone, it wouldn't have happened. Now, maybe it needed to happen to prompt me to being more sharper, to prepare me, because I was already on the road of quite a decent level of going up and up and up. Maybe that was my sign is, look, get your shit together, because you're going to be trading at a much higher scale soon. These things need to happen, because it would have been a lot more difficult if I had done that on +7 figures, and that would have been a lot harder to recover from. So that's the kind of energy that I want you to take into consideration. With the state of affairs that's in the market right now, with slippage and all these things that can happen, please do not focus and allow your greed to take over, thinking, well, I could have a piece of that. Trade if it's there and you've got a system and it makes sense. It doesn't mean don't take trades and be overly cautious. It just means don't be reckless and just be aware. Use your common sense as to what is happening and how that could affect the volatility of the market, but also embrace the fact that during these periods, price can be a bit choppy. It can move sideways. So maybe you don't get an entry for a week or so that you normally would have had more trades, but don't allow that lack of frequency to then deviate from your plan and then lower the quality of your positions. That's what amateurs do. So stay patient. You will thank your future self when you are trading more money. So that was one of my biggest losses. The way to recovery was a lot of emotional battles, but again, after a while you brush it off, you move forward, and you use it as a very, very powerful pain point that has now put me in a position to make sure that doesn't happen again. And I'm actually very grateful for that loss, because it's allowed me to level up so much more. So thank you guys. Thank you for tuning into this episode and allowing me to share this story with you. And I'd love to hear some of your stories and how you recovered for them. Guys and girls, as always, thank you for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next episode. Take care, everyone.